live chat show. My name is Jack McLean. I'm your host, and tonight my guest is Luke Meehan. He is currently the strength and conditioning coach at the Richmond Tigers Football Club, and prior to this role, he worked at the Western Bulldogs and Geelong Football Club. Before we start tonight's episode, our mission here at Prepare Like a Pro is to inspire aspiring athletes and professionals who want to work in the AFL industry. If you like the show, please show your support by following us on Instagram and subscribing to the podcast. We're on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. G'day, Luke. Thanks for jumping on, mate.
Thanks for having me, Jack. It's been a while. We've been trying to have this for a few months, haven't we?
I know, it's good. I'm looking forward to this one. It's definitely had a build up. We got there in the end, and persistence definitely pays off. I'm excited to have you on, mate. So Emily's been on, and she has passed the baton over to you, mate. But let's jump at the very beginning of your career. At what age did you discover you had a passion for strength and conditioning and high performance sport?
Yeah, probably a bit later than you might expect. I finished school a long time ago, and I was one of the younger kids at school. So I was 17 when I finished. I didn't have my license, and I wasn't supposed to be going to the pub and all that sort of stuff. So I was a little bit younger, and I was quite lost actually. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I ended up enrolling in a business degree undergraduate course. Because honestly, I just didn't know, and I didn't mind maths and accounting, and so I started university having nothing to do with what I currently do, and I was quite immature and young when I started university, and not very disciplined, and it just didn't really work for me, and I tipped out pretty quickly, and just spent a year actually working in a petrol station, sort of trying to work out what I wanted to do in life, and I was a little bit lost. In hindsight, I sort of wish I'd traveled or done something more productive with my time, but I didn't. Anyway, so I worked for a year at a petrol station and then a few other things, kind of wondering what I wanted to do, and I reflected a lot, and obviously I really liked keeping fit, and I really like sport. And so I eventually settled on, I'd like to be a PE teacher. So I enrolled in which is, I think it's now called the exercise science, but it was a human movement degree with teaching as a side, a teaching degree with human movement. And I got into the course and quickly found out that I loved the human movement side of things and not so much the teaching. So I dropped the teaching and kept up the human movement side of things. Not sure, not thinking I would ever end up in sport. I kind of, still wasn't really sure. I thought maybe I'd get into being a personal trainer or working in the gym. Wasn't really sure. Maybe even nutrition, which funnily enough, my wife is a dietitian. And in the end, I remember meeting just through chance up in Brisbane, actually, Geelong's fitness coach at the time, which you'd probably now call high performance manager. His name was Loris Bertolacci. And I met him and got talking to him, and he thankfully, and I'll always be grateful, offered me some work experience with him down at the Cats. I told him what I did at uni, and so that became a thing, and I went down to Geelong. I drove down to Geelong. I was living in Melbourne once a week, and just did whatever I could, helping them clean the gym or put out cone, just whatever he needed. I was probably more of a pest than a help. It was probably, that was kind of the time. So I was probably 24 by the time I sort of realized, this is pretty cool, working with professional football players and in this environment with professional strength coaches. That's probably how it all evolved for me. Kind of I didn't go to uni expecting to end up in this role, but felt that way.
Love that story, mate. Thanks for sharing. And I imagine there'd be some strength and conditioning coaches that might be in that, or there's a few chapters that you mentioned there, but that challenge of not knowing, what to do after school or where am I going, with my career. It is a tough time. You're sort of growing from a personal point of view of who you are, but also professionally, you feel, your mates are starting to work out what they're doing, and you're feeling a little bit behind. You mentioned, you're starting the business degree, and it just didn't sit right with you. You could have just stuck with it and got it done. How did you sort of have what did you go off gut feeling to be like, nah, this is not me, I'm just going to pull out and try something different?
Yeah, so it was probably a combination of that, plus I was just probably not really ready for not being held accountable to go into lectures and shoots and all that kind of thing. I come from obviously we all go to school and there's a role taken and all this sort of stuff. And I'll just look back now and think I was so young and immature. And I just, Fridays and Mondays, I would find myself at home and not going in. And I don't know, maybe it was because I wasn't that interested in the course. And also, I think I was too immature for the environment at the time.
Yep.
And then if I'm being really honest.
Yeah. And that session you had with Loris, how did that come about? Was there a connection before you guys met? Like, obviously you saw something in you. So was there, how did that conversation come about?
Really, honestly, by chance. My dad was living in Brisbane at the time. And I went up there to visit him, and he took me to a Lions Geelong game. And I don't know how it ended up, but we ended up down in the Geelong rooms for some reason. I think he had a business partner, or there was some reason I was down there, and I saw Loris stretching the guys and handing out drinks and all sorts of stuff. And I was sort of standing near him, and I just started talking to him, and he's a lovely bloke, Loris. I'm not sure if you know much about him, and he was really open.
He's been on the podcast. He was a ripper.
Oh, he's been on podcast. And he was just he was just the loveliest bloke. And I'm not really sure why he why he gave me so much, but thank God he did. And it was from that moment onwards that I kind of
you saw it.
I saw it.
Yeah.
That's completely. It's a weird story, probably quite different to what you've heard before from others.
Yeah, it's a good one though, because I think there will be periods of where that will resonate with people. We've all had periods of chapters of our life where you are a bit lost and you want to rush that decision of just doing stuff. But and how important as well it is to follow what you're interested in, and what's flowing, I guess. Right, like you said with the uni, it just wasn't clicking with you. And then with Loris actually seeing, because you weren't sure at that point what you wanted to do, but by seeing that environment, it sounds like you were excited by that. Saw his role, what he was doing, his purpose in the role, and that clicked with yourself. And then you started doing that. So you mentioned how that 1 day a week, bit of travel involved. Doing your best to help out Loris in his role by assisting him and being a pest by the sounds, by being a shadow and asking him lots of questions. For people that are interns now, how important is it to contribute, like you said, with the cones and the setting up the gyms, although they're not the sexy roles to have and they're not flashy, but how important is it to really own that assistance?
I think it's really important that if you are lucky enough to get a role, an internship, it's really important to do the little things and take the initiative and not have to be asked, I suppose. And just, I don't know, it's it kind of, you don't want to belittle people by telling them put cones out, or you just want to see some enthusiasm from them. And then I think in turn, when you see that and you see that someone's really into it and really excited to be in your environment and learn, you're probably more willing to give them more of your time to pass on what you know and kind of help them. It's one of those things, I suppose. I don't know. It's always come naturally to me when I kind of just do everything you can. But I've seen lots of different interns and ones that I think come into it and think it's all glamour and want to go straight into doing all the bigger stuff, and and then you see some others which are great that understand the internship role. And I hope I'm making sense. But
you are, mate.
And it's really hard to get these roles in the current environment because of COVID, and clubs are really limited in who's allowed into clubs, and it's becoming quite rare to actually. I'm not sure if you know many people that have got cadetships at the moment or internships. But yeah, we've had 2 years. We've hardly had anyone in those roles, just a handful maybe. Whereas in the past, we've had plenty of people roll through and try to give as much help as we can. But yeah, COVID's kind of changed. The opportunities have dried up a little bit. Hopefully that changes soon.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but there's 2 takeaways there for those listening. They're bloody competitive, and like you mentioned, it set you up that being in the environment, you saw what you wanted to get out of it. Like when you started helping out, Loris, is that where you started to see, okay, I can see my career path a little bit here, and you started?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. It was funny. He had, and Loris has always been really intelligent, ahead of his time, and very quite a lateral thinker. He had developed a Excel database for load monitoring, which is something that's quite common, obviously, and quite advanced how we do it now these days. But he had a really basic RPE system and time and training time by RPE, and he kind of developed this in conjunction with a few consultants. And yeah, so I was kind of helping out, gathering data and entering data, and kind of, I suppose, helping him. You know, he would obviously assess the data that was in there, but yeah, helping him with load reports. And it was very, very early days of all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I kind of was into this sports science side of the conditioning and fitness department when I first started, and that kind of carried over when I got my next role, full-time job. It was kind of more that than what I actually do now. And so yeah, it kind of, I suppose we'll get into how that all evolved, but yeah, it was kind of that stuff first, which I was really interested in, not so much the S&C, funnily enough.
More the data analytics and sports science side of things.
Yeah, which is funny because I'm not a real big data guy, but yeah, I was that was kind of my first foray into professional sport, was helping out with all that stuff.
Yeah. And then, you mentioned the progression. So how did that come about? So I guess actually let's first backtrack a little bit. So you're doing that 1 day a week. You were doing your degree, which is sort of like the equivalent of exercise science. How were you sort of making ends meet at that point in your career? Were you still working at the petrol station, or?
No. So it was pretty hard because I suppose number one, I thought this is such a great opportunity that Loris and the Cats were affording me. So I kind of, at some point, decided I'm going to give them as much time as I can. So I was just down there probably more than 1 day a week. I was going off as often as I could, and I was helping out wherever I could, which kind of then limited, with when I was studying as well, limiting time to go and earn some money as well. So I think I was doing some random jobs. I worked on a few data gathering studies for some Deakin University projects. I got a role helping out the Geelong college senior 18 team. There was a little bit of money there. I was sort of doing odd bits and pieces, but honestly, I wasn't earning a lot of money. I was kind of, and at some point as well, I actually moved down to Geelong and rented a room off Loris at a very cheap rate, thank God. But yeah, I kind of was just making ends meet. I remember every weekend I'd make a big batch of bolognese and kind of drag it out over the week because I didn't have much money to buy food. And even like there'd be half a loaf of bread at the club that was almost out of date and no one's going to eat it, so I'd like take that home. And I didn't have a lot of money. It was, but I didn't care. I was kind of down there thinking, this is just the coolest job in the world, and it didn't really bother me that I didn't have a lot of money. And it probably
it's what you wanted to be doing.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And then what did the next progression of that look like? Was that then to a part-time paid role?
So that became, that's right. So that became, lucky enough, a part-time role. I was helping out a little bit with the AFL senior team during the day, but then I was doing 2 or 3 nights a week, kind of trying to run a similar program with the Geelong VFL team. Geelong were, I think they were the first club, and they might have been the only club for a while that actually had their own standalone VFL team, which now everyone has. So they had their own team that would train at night that was fully integrated into the club. So that was a great year for me. I was kind of thrown into the deep end, and so I'd be taking my own warm-ups at night. I'd be running their strength program, I'd be doing their fitness program, and then game day came along once the season started. So yeah, that's how that evolved, and that was a really great year of learning for me, because I was people that know me now probably wouldn't believe this, but I was quite a shy kid when I was growing up, and it's like you can't really be like that when you're in front of
Leading a group.
30 blokes taking a warm up, or so it was a really good year for me in terms of learning and growth. So I think that was 2005, which is a long time ago. But yeah, Lee Cheetah was the coach of the Cats, and he was great for me too. He probably could tell I was a bit out of my depth, but never made me feel like that. It was always quite encouraging and respectful. So yeah, I'd be forever grateful for that year.
And looking back now, like you mentioned, the importance of leading your own program, and from a personal point of view, like getting out of your comfort zone, but then also professionally, like you're running your warm up, you're developing your philosophy, I guess, on implementing what you've seen, and by assisting to now running it. How important is leading a program for strength and conditioning coaches?
I'm not too sure. I mean, it's what I did, so I would probably tell you it's a great idea and a great opportunity. But yeah, like people are getting into sport that haven't gone down that path. So I'm not sure it's integral.
Yeah.
But it was another thing. It sort of taught me. You come out of uni quite bright-eyed, and you think you know everything, and you think that every athlete's gonna like love training in the gym, love extra running, love being as fit as they are, and then you kind of get into the sports environment and learn pretty quickly that only a handful of the guys actually really love doing strength work all the time, and a handful of guys love the running and eat it up. You learn pretty quick that everything that you learn doesn't necessarily apply, and it's a funny thing, and I'm sure you've seen this yourself. I came into sport thinking, everyone's gonna love squatting and deadlifting and cleaning and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I laugh now, like there's only a certain percentage of teams even now that I work with, the guys that actually love doing gym. So yeah, I think running your own program is a great opportunity, but I'm not sure it's the only way into the system. Yeah.
No, that's good. That's a good insight. So there's many ways to sort of grow within high performance sport, but you felt like by learning how to assist and then learning how to lead, it was good development from a personal point of view. And I guess the application you said from the sports science.
Yeah, that's true. So you sort of got to do everything, which is great, and you sort of see how it all fits. One thing I will say is anyone that's trying to get into professional sport, with internships opportunities kind of drying up, helping out, because every AFL team has a VFL, every Victorian team has a VFL link. That's kind of, I think, the way in at the moment. If you really want to get in, and I'm sure you know this yourself, like helping out at the VFL level or even the AFLW side of things, and being in the club is probably the way to do it at the moment. I'm not sure. Would you agree with that? Because it is hard to get in, as you know. There's only 18 clubs in footy, and there's not that many roles. So yeah, I think in the past it might have been doing an internship which led to jobs, but at the moment I think the best way through to show who you are and how you work and how you operate is through VFL systems and AFLW teams.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it, like you said, with COVID, it's made things a lot less opportunities at the top level. So I guess there's if you're in an opportunity where you are helping out and you're lucky enough to have an internship, make the most of it. And then if you're not, don't be disheartened with being at any level, I guess, and just getting experience, because opportunities are going to have to come somewhere. And if you're working in sport, it's not a bad way to be using your time.
Yeah, well, just as a case in point, we just hired a rehab coordinator who came through. His name's Dan Bailey. He came through our AFLW program. So that was his way into, like, he was working at Carey, doing some S&C stuff. He's an athletics coach, doing all the things everyone does, helping out, trying to help out wherever he could. And yeah, he was part of our AFLW program, impressed everyone in that, and work sort of came through. And so when this role opened up, it was kind of an easy hire for us, because we already knew him and had great feedback from the AFLW staff. So it is, don't knock back. What I'm trying to say to people is, AFLW is definitely a pathway into and AFLW in itself is a role as well. So,
and with, I guess, taking COVID out of sight, but if you are in AFLW or VFL with these aligned clubs, and potentially there's not a crossover, do you think, is it worthwhile trying to help out? Like you said, you were trying to spend as much time as you could at Geelong. Put COVID to a side for a second, but do you think that's the approach you got to take, is help out where you can in the other programs?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is. And again, I think, especially with staff cutbacks and things in the last 2 years, like everyone that's working in footy departments, but in our area of footy departments are pretty busy. So it's also quite hard to then have interns that just want to stand by you and want to learn. Like, you kind of got to show your worth as well and get involved and help out. I hope that helps.
It contribute.
Hope some people out there. I'm sure 100%. They already knew that, but
it's a good philosophy, isn't it? Like, you got to give first before trying to take. And going back to your career, like you mentioned, Loris, who are some other people that have helped influence your career?
Yeah, I'm really lucky. I've worked with a lot of, I guess you call them high performance managers now, or senior fitness guys. So Loris was my first. With him was Chris Dennis, who taught me a lot about strength training. Loris taught me a lot about power. Actually, Loris taught me a lot. He was a great mentor and someone to bounce and learn a lot off. After the Cats, I was lucky enough to get a job. So do you know Cam Falloon, who is quite a successful business guy?
He's been on
Body
as well.
Fit.
Mate's been on there.
So Cam and I were at the Cats with Loris in 2006, and that all ended, and Cam got hired as head of fitness, or whatever the role was called back then, at the Western Bulldogs. And luckily enough, I'd formed a good enough relationship or whatever with him, and he gave me my first full-time job at the Dogs in the end of 2006, so going into 2007. And Cam was a great boss too. He was, what I learned from Cam was being organised, and he had a great mind for rehab and strength. So Cam was a great role model, or great mentor as well. After Cam left for Port Adelaide, I think in 2009 or end of 2008. Excuse me. Sorry, mate. I had COVID a couple of weeks ago.
Hey, you're right.
Still got a little cough. So Bill Daverin, he was hired as Cam's replacement in 2009, and so I'd learned a lot of the technical stuff of S&C and rehab from the other guys. But then Bill came in, and Bill came from a coaching background. He'd been head coach of Triathlon Australia for, I think, 10 yees. Coach, medalist, gold medalist, Com Games gold medalist, Olympic. He had a lot of experience in coaching. So Bill, and I've got a great relationship with Bill. Bill probably taught me the coaching and human side of S&C and building relationships with other people in a footy department, not being so compartmentalized with fitness and medical. So Bill taught me the coaching side of things. And then, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not skipping too far ahead here. I then, when I eventually got my current role at Richmond, started working with Peter Burge, who's an very successful long jumper and triple jumper. And Pete, Pete's taught me a lot about management, building relationships, and how our role fits into a complete football program. Where the strength role fits in, and where, so I've been really lucky. I've worked with a lot of different guys, and they've all taught me something really important to make me the operator that I am today.
Yeah. That's a good list of quality operators, mate.
List.
I've
also worked with lots of other guys and assistants that have taught me a lot as well, but they're the main guys that sort of head roll.
Yep.
Yeah.
And relationships stood out to me throughout all of that. But what would be, for those listening, athletes as well as staff, some actionable things that you've implemented over your career that you've learned off these guys that you've worked on, I guess, to develop relationships? Obviously, being a good person is something that's talked about a lot, but what are some things that can do, you think, to work on that area?
Yeah, I guess I should go back. So when I first started, I'd be very quite, fitness and strength and conditioning is the most important thing in the footy club. I wasn't really thinking too far outside, and I wasn't dismissive of other parts of the footy club, but I thought that S&C was the most important role and the most important, and we should be respected and all this kind of thing. And it probably stopped me from, I don't know, opening my eyes up to other people that I worked with. Medical, I mean, I worked with some awesome doctors and physios, and I've kind of like, I don't know whether it was my being naive or, maybe I was a little bit insecure in what I did. So I just didn't really kind of give people in those roles as much respect as I probably do now. So I've learned over time that, you're one little cog in a massive chain of cogs in a footy department, and everyone that's there is really experienced and valuable and knows what they're doing. And I'm a way better operator now for being like that. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing is, I think I mentioned before, I was quite shy when I first started in sport. And so I just kind of like went in running, did my job, did my role, and then kind of got out. And I think I've become better at sort of embracing that footy, or sport. You got to treat it like a vocation more than a job. You got to really, it's part of your life and lifestyle, and you spend so much time there and so much time with these people that, I've become more invested in, the people I work with, and trying to spend more time, not just doing my job, but getting to know other people. And I hope I'm answering this all right. It's past my bedtime, so I might be rambling a little bit. I go to bed.
No, it is, mate. It's something that resonates with me, because I definitely have felt that, like being shy as well, and you want to just own your role. And then I guess, like you said, you can be insecure because you're just trying to find your own way and be competent at your own specific role. That's all you're focusing on, is your own little cog. And then trying to then be able to think a collaborative approach and more holistic laterally as you grow makes a lot of sense. And what you said there, developing the relationship. So does that, I imagine you'd have different strategies to do that with different people, but like, is that things that you do within the club? So making sure you get into the medical room, get into, connect with the coaches in the corridor, or is that more something that you think outside of the workplace?
Was a couple of things. So at our club, we've got a great communal area with coffee machines and couches. So it's quite easy to roll into work, set your day up and go upstairs and kind of spend 20, 30 minutes, talking to everyone upstairs. Secondly, when we travel, like I've got 2 young kids, so when we travel and you've got your own room and own bed, the temptation is, once you're done for the day, go back and get some sleep and get a good night's sleep and rest. But, like I've probably learned over the last few years that it's also a great opportunity, because everyone else is away from their family, to go and like hang out and get to know people, and you see a different side of people when they're a bit more relaxed and, at night, not necessarily at the club. Yeah, and I suppose the other thing I need to mention with relationships is with the actual athletes and players. This is something that's changed a lot since when I first started. I think we've gone from a time when we were probably quite authoritarian towards players, and this is how it is, and if they were doing something wrong, you'd kind of and I've had to kind of and I probably took a little bit of prod in here from some people, management at club I work with now, but like you've had to evolve and become. I mean, you work, instead you work for the player. You don't work at you don't work for the club so much. Does that kind of make sense? So I've gone away from kind of being that whether I was authoritarian or not, but kind of been someone that
Service
would
the
yell
pod.
at players if they were, or kind of, try and be like that if they weren't doing the right thing, to trying to be a bit more like build a relationship with them. So if it ever came to the top point where you need to, not discipline, but you need to say something, you kind of can as well. And I think it's taken on better if you've got a better relationship with them. So it's not just staff, it's people, all people at the club.
Invest in the people, and like you said, football
Yep.
clubs are people. So
and I guess go back to being shy as well. Like you go into a footy club, it's pretty intimidating, and then they're these big, strong football players, and you kind of feel a bit, you're quite shy when you first start, which you just can't be like that, and you have to sort of come out of your shell. And I think you get a way better result when you kind of spend some time trying to get to know the guys rather than us versus them, if that kind of makes sense.
100%. And what about from a strength and conditioning, like if we nerd out for a second here in terms of philosophy for the S&Cs listening, how is you've mentioned like Loris was quite ahead of his time with the power side of things, and the game has changed a fair bit, but he was almost ahead by the sounds of it. So you got exposed to quite modern day strength and conditioning, I guess, quite early in your career. But how have you found you've changed your philosophy, both S&Cs, but also for athletes listening, for footballers that don't have access to an S&C? How should a footballer be preparing for the game, do you think?
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I'll try and answer this the best way I can. I think when I first started, 15, 20 years ago, and still to this day, a lot of traditional S&C is influenced by the rugby union guys, and their kind of work. Jason Webber was a guy who everyone kind of looked up to when I first started, who was in charge of the Wallabies program. And that was kind of seen as, the way to S&C sport. And I guess, and that stuff's awesome, and it's awesome for rugby union. I guess we've
that was
gone
a lot
away
of heavy lifting and getting big.
A lot of heavy lifting, which is awesome and what's required for those sports. I guess how it's kind of evolved, and I hope people can understand this, we've kind of gone away, not completely away from that. There's still an element. We still definitely do max strength lifting in our program, but we've gone away from lifting heavy 3-4 times a week. And I guess my philosophy is I've changed from trying to get the guys as strong and powerful and whatever as possible to how's my program get these guys into great shape for AFL, but also keep them injury free. It's moved to more of a, I suppose we do kind of a conjugate program where we still do touch on strength in the first part of a week. But we definitely do a lot more dynamic work than what I would have done 10, 15 years ago. And the second part to that is, I think when I first started doing the S&C role at the Bulldogs, we kind of had this philosophy where you'd spend all of pre-Christmas smashing the guys with strength work or hypertrophy, whatever their needs were. And then, Christmas would come, and then we get into January, be approaching games, and then you kind of transition to doing power work, I suppose you'd call it. So it was kind of a strength base switching into power. And one thing that's definitely changed from that angle is that we do everything concurrently now. I mean, day one, when they come back from their off season, we're doing speed training, we're doing max strength training that week, we're doing dynamic power work later in the week, and we kind of like bring it all up together, if that makes sense, rather than going strength, building the base, power. So that's definitely I'm not sure what your experiences are, but that's kind of what I've seen change over the years.
I mean, you've been in the industry for 20 years, so you've seen a lot, obviously a hell of a lot more than me, but I learnt that off Andrew Russell with his philosophy, which he sounds like really similar in the sense of Loris ahead of his time as well. And talking about how you don't want to detrain, like that's way worse than actually getting a huge gain in one thing, but then you're losing it, and then the yo-yo effect, whereas if you can just try and hold and develop all the qualities,
that's right,
which makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? When you first hear it, you're like, the penny drops, and you're like, oh yeah, no shit.
I mean the other thing that's changed is the draftees that are coming in are way, we'll put a caveat on this because there's been COVID, they're way better developed physically than what they were 10, 15 years ago. So the guys that are doing programs at the at the junior levels are doing a really great job, generally speaking. In saying that, COVID's been really challenging for these kids coming in into the program. You know, they're coming in. Some guys are quite highly trained, but you know, some guys are coming in that have hardly done anything for the last 2 years and hardly played. But so that's another thing that's changed. We're probably not dealing with as many. I like to say, like, there's 20-year-old, 18-year-olds, and there's 15-year-old, 18-year-olds, and we're probably dealing with less of that secondary thing nowadays. So that's changed for sure, for the better. So it allows you it just allows you to get straight into the performance stuff rather than spending too much time developing them. Still need to develop, of course, but yeah, that's changed, amongst other things.
Yeah, and what about where's your sort of stance, or where do you focus? I imagine there's a bit of both, but like, are you trying to focus predominantly on developing capacities, like within athletes, or is it more sort of how they're moving and their mobility, stability side of things with technique, do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, the whole department, it's not just me. Bergie, my boss, our boss, he spends a lot of time kind of working out which direction for each guy and what they need, where they're really strong, what areas they're strong in, and we kind of we do work collaboratively. Past my bedtime. Yeah. We do work together, I'll say, on these things. But yeah, we do those things. Me specifically, I'm more worried about strength or hypertrophy, or do they need more time, spending more time developing rate of force development, or are they already that athlete, and how do we maximize that? How do we, and a lot of it is a lot of injury prevention stuff on how they move, making them better movers, which you touched on for sure. Yep.
And then what about like screening, like the medical side of things? How much of that do you take into account in terms of their individualization, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, we've kind of gone away from the general movement screens, the FMSs and those kind of things. they have their place for sure, but we kind of, like, I've been doing this a long time, and I kind of think I can watch a guy do a squat or duck under a hurdle and kind of pick up 3 or 4 things that we might be able to put into their injury prevention program, from that, that side of things. So we don't do a movement screen per se. I mean, the medical guys have their own little medical screens for sure, but yeah, from a movement point of view, like we'll get them marching over hurdles or going under hurdles, or we can see them in the weights room, and we can pick up little things that we can work on for sure. Yeah, I think that's just comes with experience. I think, I hope that's
okay. So training is screening for you. You'll see the young boys come into the program, or new recruits, and you just integrate them into your program, and you start to see how they squat, hinge, and
he squats, and he sinks in. He doesn't sink into his heel. He goes into his 4-footer. He's got a tight ankle, or his hips gone, or I think with time and experience, you can kind of do those things as you go.
Yeah,
for sure. Definitely going under hurdles are a great exposure of movement, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, is that set up like a dowel stick coming out of the rig, or is that
it's up to anything.
Proper hurdle?
Proper athletics hurdles. We've got the guys going over them weekly or under them weekly as well, and you pick up a lot. You can learn a lot about them and how they are.
What are some big things for the footballers listening that you see? some areas that are not.
Well, classic AFL: tight hips, tight lower back, ankle problems. Your shoulder problems, you can see them rotating, all sorts of stuff. Probably, how long have we got?
Yeah. And then, let's say hips, what would be some real bang for buck drills or mobility, tissue work, whatever it is that you feel you get good return, or athletes get return?
I'll probably answer that. I'll probably answer that by saying, this is a much bigger issue, but doing mobility is quite boring for AFL players in general, and flexibility and stretching and yoga and all that. And it probably is for most people. Guys at the back end of their career will always say to me, I wish I'd taken this more seriously when I was younger. A 22-year-old can play a game and be feeling pretty good 2 days later without taking that much care of his body. I'm speaking a bit, I'm trying to make a bit of fun of this, but yeah, I would say to people who are listening, or especially young players, not to neglect mobility and flexibility training in their program, but in conjunction with a good strength program.
Yeah, and like you said, it is boring, particularly for the young that don't have the motive of pain driving them. So is it on us
it's a funny
SSBs
one.
to make it interesting, like with games and things, do you think? Or is it more just preventing
sure,
sitting down for a long time?
Well, I mean, there are guys that love sitting on their beanbag playing PlayStation for all sorts of hours, and then come in and they're great movers. But I say to them, at some point that's going to catch up with you. I don't know. It's one of those things like doing a yoga or a stretching session. You kind of, it seems like an effort, but you always feel better after you do it. How you sell it to the players, I don't know. Like it's better when they're obviously self-driven to do it. But yeah, it's one of those things. It has not changed in 15 years. It's always like there's a lot of them you got to kind of coax into doing it, which is really funny. I find that it's really, really funny because it's definitely going to help them. But yeah, so it's a weird one. I don't know what your experience is with it. But
no, I just know that's been now going back into working with high school athletes and parents talking about it. They can't touch their toes, and particularly because of COVID, a lot of Melbourne boys have spent a lot of time on Zooms and sitting down, and it's not been their fault. But then now they're coming back to full activity, and 14-year-olds straining their hamstring and lower back pain, knee pain, like basically adult stuff is popping up in that population. So it's I was keen to pick your brain on. I'm thinking about it, trying to find.
I wish I had something for you. Yeah.
It's a tough one because it is boring.
You know what I do? I the older guys that got kids, I get them to jump on YouTube and do yoga with your toddler. There's some pretty cool little fun yoga things for kids, and that's good stretching. So yeah, that's one way I've tried to encourage some of the older boys to do a bit of yoga at home. But yeah, they definitely, it's not something that they jump to do, that's for sure. And it's quite a frustration of my boss, Peter, who's come from a track and field background, who knows the value of it and obviously did a lot of it himself. And it's always been a bugbear of his that the boys don't do more of it or don't embrace it more. Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go.
That's not saying our guys I'm not begging. Our guys are terrific and everything. It's just, stretching can be a bit of a funny one sometimes.
Yeah, but it's good to, for the footballers listening, it's an opportunity to get a bit of an edge, really, because like you said, it hasn't changed much in 15 years at the top level. So if it's something you start chipping away at now, and the general consensus is a yoga class a week. How's that as the takeaway?
Yeah, well, in our program, the structure of our week, we have at this time of year, we have Wednesdays are a day off. And on Tuesday, so we do a main session on Mondays, and on Tuesday mornings we do, I guess we call it a maximal strength leg lower session. And then we finish our day before our day off with a yoga or a big stretch together. We find that's a good way to end that phase of the week before their day off. But yeah, like I'm sure I'd love to think that they're all on their day off doing extras, or every night they go home and do it. But yeah, I can't say for sure that's what they do.
Yeah. And on challenges, what has been one of your biggest challenges? I guess a growth phase, and what did you learn from it?
So you mean when I first started, or like
throughout your whole career?
One of my biggest challenges.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's an easy one to answer. It's definitely the last 2 years.
Yep.
And I'm sure you've found that yourself, and probably a lot of people listening. It's if I speak purely, like, I'm not going to talk from a personal point of view, but from a professional point of view, I didn't even know that being stood down was a thing. So when COVID hit and the league stopped, and then jumping onto I didn't even know what Zoom was. Jumping on a Zoom meeting and being told that you stood down, and I'm thinking, what stood down? And then realizing quite quickly it meant I didn't have any work. I had to learn pretty quickly. And then you go and it's like, and I'm sure it's not just working in sport, but working in sport, you're so busy all the time and you're constantly working. And then going from that, and that was round one. So we just come out of pre-season. So like it was a really busy time of year. And then all of a sudden you're waking up and you've got nothing to do. I found that there was all sorts of things. It was terrifying, really. So that was, and then, the reality of how am I going to pay the bills and all that sort of stuff as a secondary thing. But yeah, I kind of just had to find a way to keep myself busy. And I didn't know, none of us knew when we were going to go back to footy and training. So after sort of wallowing in self-pity for a couple of days, I thought, well, okay, how do I stay engaged with the players and the staff? And so we came up with some, Zoom workouts, which weren't really workouts. I kind of more just jump on and have a laugh and have a bit of fun and just
connection session.
Forget about what was going on for 20 minutes. So, it's probably not helping anyone that's trying to get in the industry my hardest time. But yeah, the last 2 years has been, and even like I probably evolves a bit into last year was really challenging too. From a sense that like we were finishing games and not knowing when our next game was going to be. So I've gone from, and I like to be a very organized person, and I have my whole year set out and programs ready, and not that I don't change them, but yeah, all of a sudden I'm going from that to, okay, well, I don't know, we've played on a Sunday and we're not finding out until Tuesday where we're playing or who we're playing and what day it's going to be. And so to try and program in that sense was really, really hard too. And kind of made me, you end up just programming the bare minimum and trying to tweak it as you went, because you just didn't know. So last year I found really, really hard as an S&C or as a strength guy. So yeah, that was really tough. So here's to hoping that this year's quite normal.
Yeah,
you kind of don't want to jinx it by saying that, but yeah, like so far so good. And I found last year really, really challenging. Yeah, from a professional point of view. Yeah.
And like, for the two challenges there, I guess the first one being stood down, like you said, out of the blue, completely out of your control. Were there any takeaways from that experience at all? Like that would, if that time happened again, or I don't know, do you live a bit differently now, or have you changed things, or is it just that because that was such an outlier that you've sort of just moved on with it?
From a personal point of view, it probably taught me the importance of routine, and it probably taught me gratitude too. I mean, I've always loved my job and thought this is pretty cool, but yeah, like once it gets taken away from you, you kind of think pretty quickly about how important it is to you. And things that I probably learnt was the things about your job that you don't necessarily think about that are really important, like a routine and like the social side of work and being organized to go to work. And I don't know, I hope I'm answering that right, but it was a bit of a head spin, wasn't it?
100%. Like you said,
like here I was, like working with the premiers, to then thinking 4 or 5 days later, oh God, how do you get the dole? And that's pretty hard between the eyes. And fortunately, JobKeeper came around and we were only out of work for, I think, in the end 8 or 9 weeks. So it wasn't the end of the world. And look, don't get me wrong, people have suffered a lot more than me. But yeah, it was definitely an eye opener, and probably showed you. I mean, sport's always been volatile, and you always feel a little bit vulnerable anyway. But yeah, probably definitely hit home how vulnerable you actually really are.
Yep. And then the second one, like you mentioned, you like to be prepared, organized, and you've got sort of clarity on where you're going with your phases, and then suddenly that's blown out of the water, and you've got to make these agile decisions, which you were making anyway, like you said, but now you genuinely have to change everything for the given week. What about that from a practical point of view, or philosophy, or S&C?
Yeah, I mean, I just went to, I guess I kind of sat down and just thought, well, what's the minimum that we can do? And kind of went with a minimalist kind of approach to just, this is in the gym with strength training. Because, you could easily have kept your program going and hit them pretty hard on, say, a Tuesday after a Saturday game. And then who knows, like you could have been playing 3 days later. So you kind of had to be prepared for a game to be any time. So yeah, I hope that answers it. I went with just the bare minimum. What's the minimum effective dose? We'll keep these guys going as best as we can. And again, to make things a little bit more complicated with the whole scenario, was we were coming off a really, really shortened pre-season. We our senior guys didn't come back till after Christmas because we finished so late the year before. Oh, sorry, no, the year before in 2020 we finished in late October. So, we only had a 6-week block before we were playing games. So there wasn't a lot to work off to kind of, there wasn't a lot holding everything up. So I just spent the whole year kind of just thinking, when's this all kind of fall apart physically? And fortunately didn't fall apart. It wasn't too bad. It was a tough, it was a good learning year, but it was a really, really hard year to do my job professionally. I'm down to 8% battery, mate.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
I didn't bring my charger home with me. So
that's all right. We'll whiz through the, we're at the last part of the podcast anyway, mate, but
cool.
This part's a bit lighter. It's the fun personal stuff. The get to know Luke. So which movie or TV series has impacted you the most and why?
I saw you write that one. I don't know. I watch a lot of TV. I probably watch too much TV, especially the last 2 years. I don't know, mate. I watch Survivor's my favourite show. I don't make of that what you will. I love Survivor. I can watch that every night. I was dirty that it wasn't on last. I thought it was on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's only 3 days a week. I don't know, mate. Honestly, my answer to that is, which isn't what you're asking. I watch too much TV, which probably complicates things.
What about our favourite inspirational quote or life motto?
I saw this one as well. I'm not doing really well here, am I? Look, aim for the moon, and if you miss, you'll hit a star. Kind of think big, and if you miss, you're still going to do a pretty good job. Dimmer's got a philosophy of the 80-20 rule. If you're doing 80% of things well, you're generally doing a pretty good job. And I think, perfection doesn't necessarily exist. So, kind of, and that's anything I'm doing as a parent, as a father, or in my professional life, or as a husband. I kind of think if I'm doing things pretty well to that extent, I'm not too harsh on myself like I used to be with things. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. That's a good one. And what about on the flip side, in your work life, what makes you angry? What are your pet peeves?
I've got a couple. Packing the gym up is probably a common one, which you've heard.
Yep.
Our guys are pretty good, but like at the end of a long week, and when our programs in the afternoon, they're going from strength to a coaching meeting to whatever. So often they're rushing off. So that's one. That's not my biggest though. The OCD in me, I hate when guys match different weights on the barbell. So we've got some Iron Edge ones, we've got some Techno Gym ones. I'm like, I don't know. And I hate when a guy will use a small 5 Techno Gym plate, and then on the other side they'll use a big Iron Edge Techno plate. That does my head in. Or they'll stack the bar on. They have like a 10 kilo, then a 20, then a 15. They'll go from small.
Not in order.
That's the OCD in me, and that which says a lot about me. That does my head in.
Yeah. You're not alone there. And in a COVID-free world, favorite, but these last two, that is, favorite way to spend your day off?
Okay. Well, it's with my kids, I better say, shouldn't I? It's with my family now, mate. Yeah, I don't get, working in sport, I don't get a lot of time with, like when I do get a day with my two girls, I like to spend the day with the girls, try and do an activity and, be a father, which is a very different answer to what I would have told you 10 years ago.
That's awesome, mate. And what about holiday destination around the whole world? Where would you love to go?
Well, New York, America. I love going to the States. I love American sport. I love the food over there. So yeah, I can't wait to get back over there at some point. It's I used to go quite a lot for work and professional development and for fun as well for holidays. But yeah, it's felt like ages since we've even been allowed to get over there. So yeah, I'd love to get over there. Probably take my kids to Disneyland when they're a little bit older. That'd be pretty cool if I have the opportunity to. Also, I've got a brother that lives in Ireland, so I was lucky enough to go there for his wedding about 7 or 8 years ago. But I'd love to take my family there to see Ireland too. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome, mate. And you mentioned professional development. Obviously, you get a lot from career that you've had nearly, like we said off air, up to 20 years, which is incredible in elite sport. What about outside of the walls of what are other ways that you go about developing your knowledge, or is it speaking to other people on the call about any issues you're having or brainstorming, or is it podcasts, is it articles? Sort of.
Yeah, it used to be traveling and meeting people and talking, or calling up people you used to work with. That's obviously changed. Podcasts are great. Great learning tool. Can listen to some awesome coaches, strength coach podcasts, or your podcasts. Also, all sorts of podcasts are great. I try to read as much as I can. It's quite hard with 2 young kids and a busy work life. But yeah, there's all those things. It's just keeping your mentors and talking through things and staying in touch with guys you work with, and that's kind of what it is. But yeah, definitely podcasts and learning that way has been good the last couple of years when I haven't been able to get away. So yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for jumping on, mate. And
thanks for having me.
Giving us the hour of your time, and also being so open and honest and upfront about what's worked for you, your challenges, how you've overcome them, and all the learnings that you've had from your mentors, as well as how your philosophy's evolved. Really appreciate it. What are you what are you excited about for the rest of the year? What's on the horizon for you?
Well, hopefully some normality.
Whatever that is.
It's been so hard for anyone to kind of switch off outside of, if they're lucky enough to have a job. Being able to see family and friends again has been good, and hopefully things stay that way. And I'm just looking forward to hopefully a normal footy season where we're not locked in a Perth hotel for a week to play a game of footy, or we're going back to the MCG and it's packed and things feel normal again. That's what I'm excited about, and so far so good, and it's looking promising.
100%. Well, fingers crossed, mate. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for the chat, Jack.
Of course, mate. Thanks for coming on. If anyone wants to reach out or get in touch with you, is there a best place?
Oh, it's probably LinkedIn, but I'm not a big social media person, so probably should be. But it's LinkedIn you can find me on, and that's probably the one. I'm not sure if that's great either, but that's how you can reach me.
Okay. Yeah. Easy. We'll add it in the show notes. And thank you everyone that's tuned in and listened to this episode. If you want to watch the recording, guys, head over to Prepare Like a Pro in any directory of podcast, and we'll have our next Prepare Like a Pro live chat next Thursday with Professor and Sports Scientist Robert Augie. So you can tune in on Thursday the 17th at 8:30 p.m. I'll see you guys then. Thanks again, Luke.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, mate. Yeah.